What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to the channel. Surprise, y'all! Update 1.2 is here. Nat mentioned last week on the dev stream that it would be soon, and to keep an eye out for next, and then he was cut out. And I guess that means, yeah, it's a Wednesday, Cyberpunk launch day, and we have got update 1.2. So let's dive right on into it. Now, update 1.2, one of the biggest features of it is Rift mode. There will be links to all the goodies down in the description below, of course, but let's take a peek at it. Now, first off, we already know Rift mode is a toggle. There is rifted maps, which contain rifted enemies. You'll be able to toggle this on or off throughout any portion of the game. So, in campaign, on various difficulties, you'll always have the option to play Rift mode. Now, what's up with these rifted enemies? Well, the deal with Rift mode is the enemies are reduced. The quantity of enemies is reduced by 50%, yet there are tougher enemies. There will be enemies that are rifted. We've got goblins are larger, which can also absorb hits from other enemies. Dark elf archers shoot homing arrows that chase down their targets. Dark elf mages have an increased healing radius and summon skellies that explode on death. Dark elf warriors are invisible to non-fusion towers. This is, in my opinion, where the biggest challenge comes in. The Delphage will be real, y'all. Get ready to get smacked on, as none of your towers are going to target Dark elf warriors until you properly prepare for it. Kobolds have an increased explosion radius. Orcs are tankier and take reduced damage. Ogres, rifted ogre, snotball, and snares. Also, the first snotball isn't a snotball, it is a rifted kobold. Rifted spiders can no longer shoot webs, but they're now going to jump all over the place. They also apply a web on a melee hit that acts like normal webs with an added damage over time effect. So, rifted spiders are poisonous, no doubt. Sharkins enrage when their charge is interrupted, increasing their damage and movement speed while becoming immune to crowd control effects. So it's going to be important to focus down those Sharkin as well. Djinns apply an Onyx buff to enemies, a much stronger gold buff. They also take less time to destroy towers with an increased range and a decreased cooldown to do so. Goblin copters are truly a terror from above, dropping rifted ogres. They have an increased missile and crashing explosion radius. And the Siren is already a rifted enemy. Now, how do you prepare for all these rifted enemies? Well, you get yourself some fusion gear, which is the reward from rifted maps. Fusion gear is a new type of item that's only available on rifted maps. There are two types of fusion gear, weapons and armor. Fusion weapons, these are special weapons that have a chance to drop on all rifted maps. Rifted enemies are like normal weapons, except that they deal greatly increased damage to rifted enemies. We can look at that here in the Tavern, against a normal massacre enemy here, and a rifted massacre enemy over here. Fusion armor. Now, fusion armor is going to put together some new armor sets that you're going to want to put on your towers. The ancient set applies fusion affinity to your hero's first tower. The guard set applies fusion affinity to your hero's second tower. The militia set is the third tower. The miner set is the fourth tower, and the primitive set is the fifth tower. So depending on what hero you play and what individual defense you want to have that hero focus on building, that is the armor set that you're going to want to grind out. Now, each of these armor sets have a special benefit. We can take a look at those on the forum post. Magic missiles are double damage. Magic blockades, armors increased by 30% against rifted enemies. The fireball tower is double damage. The lightning tower is double damage. The deadly striker tower is double damage. Something important to note here about the deadly striker tower is, remember, that's what we traditionally have been using in a lot of situations to control the Dark Elf warriors. Getting a deadly striker fusion set is going to be a top priority for me, there's no doubt. And going into it without knowing all the fine-tuned setups yet, that is definitely what I would recommend for everyone else as well. The explosive trap is double damage to rifted enemies. Remember, this double damage is against rifted enemies only. Gas trap causes fusion to do 10% more damage to affected rifted enemies. This effect stacks with other similar effects. The inferno trap damage is increased by double against rifted enemies. The darkness trap causes fusion to do 10% more damage to affected rifted enemies. So you can get yourself another 10% damage boost against the rifted enemies in a lane by including a darkness trap. The spike trap damage is double against rifted enemies. Okay, on the monks, the ensnare aura fusion is going to do 10% more damage to affected rift enemies. This effect stacks with other similar effects, meaning if you used an ensnare aura and a darkness trap, for example, you're going to get that 10% damage stacking twice against the rifted enemies. The lightning aura is going to do double damage against the rifted. Healing auras increases hero armor against rifted enemies by 50%. That's pretty huge, especially considering how uppity these Dark Elf warriors are getting. The Strength Drain aura causes fusion to do 10% more damage to affected rift enemies. This effect stacks with other effects, and there we go, there is another. So a Strength Drain aura, an Ensnare aura, and a Darkness Trap, and you're instantly doing 30% more damage against rifted enemies. So good stuff there. Remember, this is with the fusion sets, so you have to have that fusion set put together. The Enrage aura increases chance to enrage by 5% against rifted enemies. Now the Proton Beam gets that double damage. The Blocking Field gets 30% increased armor against rift enemies. The Reflect gets double damage. Now remember, this is the reflected damage against rift enemies. The Shock Beam is going to get increased damage and an increased stun effect. And then the Overclock Beam, here we go, gives towers that are buffed 50% armor against rifted enemies. That is just huge. Once again, going back to these Dark Elf warriors getting all uppity, oh yeah, this is going to make a big difference helping you out there. Then we've got the Squire. The Spike Blockade armor is increased by 30% against rifted enemies, and it does increase damage. The Ballista gets increased damage. The Bouncer Blockade, the armor is increased and increased damage. Bowling Ball Tower is increased damage. Slice and Dice Tower is increased damage, all against rifted enemies. And then we got the armor sets. So where do you get these armor sets? Well, targeted farming is definitely a thing. It has been a thing for weapons in Dungeon Defenders Awakened for a while now, and now the same applies to armor, as each individual set will drop at specific places. So, for example, here, the helmet is going to drop Tornado Highlands, Wave 25, Ramparts, Throne Room, and then any Act 2 campaign map for Wave 5. The chest is going to be Arcane Library Wave 15 and Arcane Library Wave 25, and then any Act 3 campaign map Wave 5. The gloves are going to be Deeper Well 15, Deeper Well Wave 25, and any Act 1 campaign map Wave 5. Boots, Tornado Valley, Wave 15 and Wave 25, and any campaign map Wave 5. Same for the fusion sets. I've got them all up on the screen for you now. However, as I mentioned, there will be a link to the full forum post down in the description below. But that is an idea of how and where you will go to farm your specific items. Now, increased drop quality. Now, it doesn't mean in Rift mode we're going to get better gear, but what it does mean is that the minimum floor has been pushed up, which means your chances of getting gear in the higher bracket will increase, and that's going to help things out, no doubt about it. And then Rifted exclusive accessories. By completing Rifted maps, you have the chance to obtain new masks and accessories. These drops with difficulty equivalent stats and are a cool way to show off your prowess and luck to other defenders. There's 20 new pieces to hunt down. These are going to be used pretty heavily in the new transmog system. Now, I know a lot of folks are going to be confused as far as how to change your skins and how to transmog items right out of the gates. Head on over to the blacksmith. As far as changing skins now, it is that very first column over to the left. Now, if you're having problems or you're unsure of how to set up a new profile for a character, if you look up at the top, there's that little settings gear wheel. If you click that, you can create a new profile, which will allow you to specialize one individual character. And then Tavern changes. Something we've needed quite a bit right out of the gates was a way to test our weapons and defenses in the Tavern. So now, just like Dungeon Defenders 1, we do have the option of changing our Tavern difficulty through this lovely little button over here, and this will allow us to, set the Tavern to the appropriate difficulty level so we can see our actual damage output on the target dummies. Now, in addition to that, there is a Rifted Enemies dummy as well. By all means, use that bad boy. Now, a big part of this update, and just like the last big update, there is a limited time login event reward. So you're going to want to log in between now and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on December 14th. And that's going to give you a Corgi cosmetic for the headpiece and a Shadow EV skin for absolutely free. So just need to log in between now and December 14th. And those will automatically just be added to your account. Now, there is just tons and tons of bug fixes, performance changes, networking performance optimization, lots and lots of stuff. I will say, for one, I ran through Alchemical Labs, just trying it out on Rift mode. I was able to complete Wave 25, and the more glaring thing for me is I did have my frame counter up, and my frames never dropped below 144 frames per second, even in Wave 25 survival. So definitely good stuff there, no doubt about it. A host ready up is now in the mix. So if you're tired of people or of waiting and you're the host of a match, you can just hit Control G and that readies everyone up that is in your group that's in the same map. Now, there's been some changes to damage numbers and the filters. They've added some additional time to the build timers on all maps and difficulties. Overlapping auras is no longer going to be a thing, as if an aura overlaps, enemies are only affected by the aura they came in contact with first. This is just like it was in Dungeon Defenders 1, and, no more equipping, unequipping your gear, and stacking auras. So the aura stacking cheddar is no longer a thing. There's been some changes to heroes, most notably the Squire can no longer just hold the block indefinitely. The Squire has an actual block resource now that's indicated by the shield above the Squire's head. Different enemy attacks reduce this resource down at different rates. So there is a blocking meter, so to speak, there, and you have to make sure you don't just sit there and hold the insta-block. There was also some changes to towers as far as their base scaling. The harpoons now get an 18% greater effect from defense power in massacre mode. The bowling ball tower, 18% as well. And then the slice and dice is now scaling properly with attack rate. Changes to enemies. Skeletons will no longer target crystal cores. Dark Elf warriors no longer knock back players. The Djinn updated channel time for Djinn's Destroy Tower and Massacre to 8 seconds, down from 9 to match Nightmare. And Copter Ogres now have a lovely little hat. There's been a complete rework to the Siren. The Siren no longer spawns with her aura. Instead, she reaches her destination and then puts up her aura. Now, this means that as the Siren is coming down the lane in a pack of enemies, the enemies surrounding her are not going to get that elemental affinity. This is really, it's a straight up nerf to the Siren. I like it. I've got no problems with it. As they mentioned in the patch notes, the Siren is a fusion enemy now, or a rifted enemy now, so is going to take increased damage from fusion damage sources. And then there has been the meta of just running around on that Squire, and one of the reasons was you just get one shot by everything. So the Demon Lord and the Ancient Dragon have had their damage decreased by 30% in Massacre mode, and this should give you a little bit more survivability. I'll be going live with a Dungeon Defenders Awaken patch 1.2 on Friday. However, make sure to swing by the channel and check back, as I am going to try to get as many little tutorials out as possible on how to set up and properly gear for Rift mode. But that will do it for now. Thank you all an absolute ton. Enjoy patch 1.2. I'll see you guys next time around. Take it easy.